Birds go into Landover, Maryland and get the win in the first of two matchups against the Washington Commanders. The run game looked pretty good, but it took them until the second half to get things going. We'll recap the latest game with our takeaways, plus which Eagles made the Pro Bowl, and what do we do about this upcoming Bills game. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into it. What's up, y'all, and welcome to 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast powered by Old City Sports Network, the best network for all your Philadelphia sports needs. This is your host, Michael Roscoe. First things first, I want to wish a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and a general Happy Holidays to all those who celebrate. If you are watching this is releasing on Christmas Day, so happy holidays to everyone for all who celebrate. And if you're listening to this episode this week, if you're one of my audio listeners, it's not going to sound too different. However, if you're one of my viewers on YouTube, it's definitely going to look a lot different this week. And that is because I am in Florida celebrating with a family vacation from my wife and I's most recent wedding. And let me tell y'all something. December in Florida definitely hits different. Where I live, it is probably 30-40 degrees colder right now, and it is sunny and 78 like every single day. It hasn't rained like it does in the summer, which is some bullshit how it rains at 5 o'clock every day. Point being, it's fantastic down here, and I thought, you know what, even though I'm on vacation, I still want to bring some Eagles content. So here I am, standing in the middle of an Airbnb kitchen, bringing you that Eagles content. So with that in mind, let's get to talking. So that first half, it wasn't too eventful, with the first half ending with Washington up 10-7. But that second half, things picked up just well. The Birds would go to outscore the Commanders 22-8, including a 2-point conversion that would lead to a massive brawl from both sides of the ball, with Tyler Steen getting into like a 1v9 matchup with basically the entire Commanders defense, and it was absolutely insane. This brawl came after some pushing and shoving with, at first it was wide receiver Darius Cooper and a Commanders DB, and then this is what Jordan Mailata said on, I think, WIP 94 or whatever. So then Darius Cooper was grabbed by a Commanders player attempting to take him down. That's when Eagles tackle Fred Johnson stepped in, followed by other Commanders, followed by Tyler Steen, and then it just turned into this big-ass melee. Flags were thrown, hats were thrown. There were 3 ejections, including Tyler Steen, as well as 2 Commanders defenders. Overall, the Birds would go and squeeze out a win with a 29-18 score. Jalen Hurts would go 22 for 30 passing for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 turnovers. We love to see that. And he would also carry the ball 7 times for 40 yards. And the run game this time, speaking of carrying the ball, the run game was beyond better than what we have seen recently throughout this Eagles season. We had Saquon Barkley carry the ball 21 times for 132 yards and a touchdown. And then Tank Bigsby, our running back 2, he had 4 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown of his own, his first in an Eagles uniform. With the receiving game, Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert would lead the receiving core with the scores. And the defense did well as well, holding the Commanders to under 100 yards on the ground and under 140 yards through the air, including a Cooper DeJean interception. That was pretty spot on for him. And we'll go into our takeaways, but first let's go over a little bit of Eagles news. Starting off, the most obvious is the Philadelphia Eagles are your 2025 NFC East champions, and they break the 21-year drought of a non-repeat NFC East division winner. That's right, y'all. It had been since 2004, the Donovan McNabb era, in which the Eagles did repeat for the previous like 3 or 4 years before that, in which there was a repeat NFC East division champion. Every single year from 2004 to 2025, it's been somebody different. It's mainly been like the Eagles and the Cowboys. You have the Commanders in a couple times, and the Giants, I think, at least once or twice. But the Birds did it. They finally broke the drought, and they are your 2025 NFC East champions. In other news, after that massive brawl between Eagles right guard Tyler Steen and basically the entire fucking Washington football team, he will not face suspension and will likely play this week against the Buffalo Bills, which is a good thing because our O-line depth is really struggling this year. We got injuries with Lane Johnson. Fred Johnson has been injured, but he's been back in the lineup. Cam Jurgens has been injured, so we can't afford. Landon Dickerson's been injured. We can't afford, y'all, to lose any more linemen. So I'm thankful that he is going to avoid suspension and he'll be able to play this Sunday. And last bit of news before we go into those takeaways, Pro Bowl voting has commenced, and we have 5 Eagles named to the Pro Bowl, with others being alternates. But those 5 Eagles are cornerbacks Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, defensive tackle Jalen Carter, linebacker Zach Bond, and center Cam Jurgens. Now, some people say that, and I agree with this one at least, is that Jordan Davis got absolutely snubbed. He has been lights out basically all year. He dropped like 30-something pounds. He's been an absolute monster. He had the game-sealing touchdown and the field goal block in the Rams game. He's had like 5 pass deflections in one game as a defensive tackle. The dude's been a monster, and he's been unstoppable. And he was not even named an alternate, and there goes to like 5th alternates. And I just thought that was very surprising. But he had a very mature and humble response to this. You can see it across social media. And I think he handled that very well. I think he's focused on the game. He's not worried about stat padding or Pro Bowl nominations, things like that. Eagles fans know by heart that he should have gotten the Pro Bowl. And I think another person who got snubbed arguably would be Dallas Goedert. He has 8 touchdowns? He's in the top 3 of tight ends for touchdowns this year. And I know some people are going to say, oh, well, it's just the shovel touchdowns. There's still touchdowns. There's still fucking touchdowns, y'all. And I think he probably should have gotten a Pro Bowl nod. You know, it is what it is. The team has bigger things ahead of them with the playoffs coming up. But I still want to congratulate all those guys who made the Pro Bowl. Congrats on that. All right, y'all, we're going to go into our takeaways from this Week 16 matchup versus the Washington Commanders. And my first takeaway is that the special teams had a bad game, but a bigger concern lies ahead. And what I mean by this is that if you watch the game, you know it went wrong in the first 5 seconds when kick returner Will Shipley gets hit, fumbles the ball, and it's recovered by the Commanders in Eagles territory. Not a great start. And then on another kick return, it just seemed like he couldn't make up his mind, and he made a questionable decision not to just kneel in the end zone when the ball was kicked into the end zone. He ran out, almost kneeled it, or he almost ran all the way out of the end zone, almost kneeled it, but then didn't and decided to run it up, and I think got less than what it would have been if he had just taken the knee in the end zone. And yeah, Will Shipley did not have a great game that game. The special teams was off as well, but the bigger concern lies within our kicker, Jake Elliott. And he's not just had an off season. He has had his worst career season thus far. He has a sub 71% field goal made percentage, is 6 for 9 on kicks from 40 to 49 yards, and 4 for 8 on kicks from 50 yards or more. Now that last one, going 4 for 8, that is not as bad as last year where he went 1 for 7 on kicks at 50 or more yards. So, you know, it's not all bad in that sense, but this is definitely his worst year for kicks between 40 and 49 yards. And with how the Eagles offense has been throughout the season, in which we sometimes have to settle for 43, 44, 45 yard long field goals, That is a problem that really needs to be addressed. In this game alone, he missed 3 field goals. I think all of them were at least 30 or more yards. Only 2 of them would have count for points because one he had to retry, and he still missed that all in the same fashion. It was all wide left, and it wasn't really windy that game. It wasn't anything like contributing that would have messed up with the weather or the field conditions or anything like that. He just straight up missed these kicks. This has been a bad season for him, and with playoffs coming up, this I think is what really worries Eagles fans, because the reason the Eagles went for the 2-point conversion is speculated by a lot of fans that we didn't trust Jake Elliott. Now, Sirianni gives this whole like political like spiel on why he really went for 2 in that instance, to be up by like 18 or 19 at that time, to make it a difficult scenario in which the Commanders would have to score more. And I get that to an extent, but it came not that long after Jake Elliott missed those 3 field goals. He could have easily made that PAT, but I don't know if the trust was there or not. And that's something I think we have to look at and consider. And some Eagles fans want a new kicker, but the reality of it is that Elliott's salary commands too high of a salary for us to take as a dead cap to get a new kicker, because we got contracts coming up. We got potential new signings, draft picks to think about. I think we just can't, shell away the salary for a dead cap, because I think he still has 1 or 2 more years left on a contract to get a replacement kicker, unless it's absolutely necessary. Like if shit goes south in these next couple of games with his kicking, that might be something that the Eagles front office will have to consider. And regardless, confidence in our kicker is at an all-time low right now, and one can only wonder what that future looks like for him. But the reality is I got to imagine he'll have a bounce back year next season, because we've seen it before. His second worst season, he had a 73% field goal completion rate, and then the following season at that, it was like almost 91%. So we've seen him have a bad season and then have a bounce back season the very next season. So hopefully in our scenario, history ends up repeating itself. All right, the next takeaway I have from this game is that Kevin Patullo needs to call a complete game. Last episode, I talked about KP's play calling against the Raiders and how it was great, and that he basically just needed to do the same shit against the Commanders and everything would be chill, right? Tell me why this motherfucker only ran Jalen Hurts under center 1, maybe 2 times in the first half alone, and the rest in shotgun. Tell me why this motherfucker had Saquon up the middle literally every single first down play that we had. Almost every single play, if not all of them, was a Saquon run up the middle or inside zone, for people who know the terminology for the play calls. I just don't get it. I don't get this dude. What the fuck is wrong with him that successful plays just don't seem to stick with him, and he goes back to his bullshit? We were struggling in the first half, losing to the 4-10 beaten and battered Washington Commanders because he couldn't play Jalen Hurts under center more like he did against the Raiders. He's obsessed with playing things in the shotgun. I have no idea why, but statistically he performs better under center. But anyway, from Kevin's perspective, you find things that work, and most people would think, okay, let's keep running with this, right? But if you're Kevin Patullo, you run what works a few times, then completely abandon it and do the same shit that you've been doing that hasn't worked all season. Now, he did make adjustments into the second half. I will acknowledge that, because that is something that I have criticized for him of him not doing before, and I think he did a good job making those adjustments in the second half, because we went up 22 unanswered points, and I think that, that had a lot to do with the adjustments we made. We saw a lot more under center. We saw a great passing game, better routes. But my problem is that when he does make these adjustments, it is like not until the second half, or if we're doing great in the first half, he dials back and goes real conservative with play calling to the point where it puts us in compromising situations or losing situations. We saw with the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Rams almost had, no, not the Rams. The Bucks almost had us, and the Broncos had us. And Patullo just needs to call a full game with more creative play calling and more Jalen Hurts under center, or more Jalen Hurts in empty sets, because we saw how successful that was in the game against Washington as well. And we need to do this if we have any chance of beating the Bills this weekend. My last takeaway for this is the run game finally back, y'all. Now, the Birds hit the fourth quarter, and it was like we saw the 2024 Saquon Barkley flash before our eyes. He had been averaging 4 or less yards per carry for the majority, if not the entire season. And in this game, he was averaging 6.3 yards a carry. And he also had his third longest carry for 48 yards of the season. Not only that, y'all, but our run game used more players as options this time. We saw runs from Jalen Hurts going 40 yards, and then we saw Tank Bigsby get 47 or so, 37 yards, but he was averaging 9.3 yards a carry, y'all. The yards after contact were much higher in this game as well. It was just great to see a run game that was successful, even if it is late in the season. With Philly basically guaranteeing themselves in the playoffs after this win, they have the opportunity to expand upon this run game with enough time for them, but not enough time for opposing defenses to actually take a look at this new updated run game, if you will, and find ways to stop it. Again, our coordinating crew just needs to keep sticking with what actually works and make those adjustments in the run when things aren't working. All right, y'all, let's talk about this Week 17 preview, and this is where I will also end the episode this week. But the Birds are on the road again, because why would they ever have back-to-back home games when you can always have back-to-back away games? But that's another topic. Anyway, this time they head up north to take on the Buffalo Bills, and both teams have clinched a spot in the playoffs, but seeding is still at stake. The Birds currently sit at the number 3 seed, and with San Francisco's win on Monday night over the Colts, any hope of the 1 seed is basically just gone. But there is still the possibility of the Birds getting the 2 seed. They just need to win out, and Chicago needs to lose out. Because even if us and Chicago end up with the same record, because they beat us in the regular season, they have the tiebreaker win over us in that scenario. Now, with the game being in Buffalo, the weather is going to look like absolute dog shit, with cold conditions and winds as high as 60 miles an hour they've been reporting. Absolutely dog shit weather. The Eagles already clinched the division, and every other team in that conference has been eliminated from playoff contention. The Bills, though, they currently sit at the number 6 seed under the Los Angeles Chargers and have the chance to become the number 2 or even the number 1 seed in the AFC if things go their way. Now, they're only 1 game behind the Patriots, so to get to that 1 seed, the Patriots need to lose at least 1 game and the Bills have to win both, or the Bills have to win just 1 of their next 2 games, but the Patriots have to lose both of their next games if the Bills have any chance of passing the Patriots for not only the division, but for seeding as well. So looking into this, the Bills have more options ahead of themselves than the Eagles do when it comes to seeding. However, there's a lot of factors going into this game, such as Josh Allen being limited in Wednesday's practice, along with 6 other Bills players dealing with injuries of their own, and Josh Allen is dealing with a foot injury. It's not an insignificant sounding injury like a finger injury or anything like that. He's listed as day-to-day with a foot injury. And I think that plays a big factor into this game. So that begs the question, do we play all of our starters or do we rest a lot, if not all of them? I've been seeing that question circulate around over social media, and I feel like the short answer, which not really is an answer at this point, it all depends. If Chicago wins their game Monday night, there's no way for us to get the 2 seed. We're stuck at 3 seed. However, they are playing against the 49ers, who are in the same division as the Los Angeles Rams, who are currently leading the NFC division at the number 1 seed. So that's a big factor too. That's not an easy opponent to play against. Now, if their game was before our game, things would be a lot easier. And I would say just see what happens with the Chicago game. Like, if Chicago won, then there's no real need to put all of our starters out there for a long period of time. However, if Chicago lost, then I'd say go ahead and put in our players, go full speed ahead, with the exception of Lane Johnson and Jalen Carter, who are slated to come back this week. I just don't think the weather conditions are going to be right for your first game back after dealing with multiple weeks of recovering from pretty significant injuries and procedures. I'd say keep them out regardless of what happens. But that is not the case for us, unfortunately, because we play at 4:25 p.m. and they play at 8:20. So because of this, I think we need to just play full speed ahead and act like we have the chance to go for the 2 seed. Now, things could change before that, such as if Josh Allen doesn't play and Mitch Trubisky has to play in his place. I feel like that could give maybe our defense a chance to rest some of their starters for a little bit, maybe a quarter or so. But if Allen is in the game, then that changes things up, and I feel like our defense has to be all of our starters on there. So it really depends on a lot of these factors, and there's no easy answer to give right now on what we do about how we go into this Bills game, other than go in with the anticipation that you could get the 2 seed. But I think at the same time, we just have to see what happens later in the week to be able to determine what we do with our guys to best prepare them for the upcoming playoffs, because we're just a few weeks away. I think January 10th starts the playoffs, and time is running out for the regular season. All right, y'all, that is it for this week's special episode Away From Home. I appreciate y'all joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok by searching at Second and 15. That's 2ND8ND15, or by searching the full name Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can also find the audio for each and every single episode releasing Thursday mornings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, or wherever you get your podcasts, with the video uploading to YouTube later that same day. I'd like to thank our sponsors for this week's video. You can go ahead and check them out at oldcitysports.com. We got SeatGeek, Chickies and Pete's, Drexel Hill, Sportcoin Network, Iron and Steel Threads, and many more sponsors who help make this network run. Check all the sponsors and our promo codes at oldcitysports.com. So again, that is it for this week's episode. I appreciate everybody joining. I hope everybody listening and watching has a happy holiday season, and we will see you in the new year. So I might as well wish you all a happy new year. We will see you all next time. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle, and as always, go Birds!